Today we're going to be talking about the name of Africa and how Africa got its name according to the Hebrew, the Israelite, the Jewish perspective. Okay? What we'll be reading from is the works of Flavius Josephus, The Antiquity of the Jews, Book 1, Chapter 15. Okay? We're starting at the very first sentence, first verse. It reads, Abraham after his married, it says, Abraham after this married Keturah, by whom 6 sons were born to him, men of courage and of sagacious minds. That's that word, sagacious minds. He had 6 sons born unto him, men of courage and of sagacious minds. I had to make sure I pronounce that word correctly because that is important. Okay? Men of courage. And we're talking about the naming of Africa. Okay? Then we have, the name, these are the sons that were born unto Abraham and Keturah. It was Zambran and Yazar and Madan and Madian and Jochebed and Saus. The sons of Saus were Sabbathon and Dedan. The sons of Dedan were Latusim and Asher and Lawum. The sons of Madial were Ephes and Ophran. Remember that name, Ophran. And who he was son of Medial. The sons of Medial, which is Median, were Ephes and Ophran and Enoch and Ebedus and Eldas. For all of these sons and grandsons, Abraham contrived to settle them in colonies, and they took possession of Troglodytis and the country of Arabia the Happy, as far as it reached to the Red Sea. It is related to this Ophran that he made war against Libya. That's key. It is related to this Ophran, which is the grandson of Abraham, that he made war against Libya and took it, and that his grandson, when they inhabited it, called it from his name, Africa, from Ophran, or Afri. And indeed, Alexander Polyhistor gave his attestation to what I hear say. Who speak thus Claudimus, the prophet, who was also called Malchus, who wrote a history of the Jews in agreement with the history of Moses, their legislature, relatives that were many sons born to Abraham by Keturah. Nay, he names 3 of them, Aphar and Surim and Japhram. That from Surim was the land of Assyria dominated. And that from the other 2, Afra and Jopbram, the country of Africa took its name. So the name of Africa took its name from Afra, because these 2 were auxiliaries to Hercules when he fought against Libya and Antiochus, and that Hercules married Afra's daughter, and of her he begat a son, Diodorus, and that Sophron was his son, from whom the barbarous people called Saphacians were dominated. There's some keys here that we want you to remember that these 6 sons of Abraham, they were men that were courageous and sagacious. And of sagacious minds. They were men of courage and men of sagacious minds. I asked to remember the name Afrin because that was important. And as we went further down, we saw the importance of the name Afrin because we saw that uh, Afrin had made war with Libya, you see. So we got to understand that Libya, North Africa, and the area of Libya and the region of Libya. I want to point your attention to the region of Libya and the land and the demographics, the land demographics, and what the land is what we call desert land right there, largely engulfed by the Sahara Desert. Where there's lots of sand. Okay, so we see that Afra got its name named Africa, where Africa got its name from Afrin, and we see that he fought again, that he made war against Libya, okay, and Hercules, okay, I believe became his son-in-law, if I'm not mistaken, okay, all right. We creep over here to AfricanAmericanRegistry.org, okay, and it talks about this is Saturday the 6th, 2014, okay, 3000. Africa, the naming and designation of the continent. Let's jump right off into this. The naming or designation of Africa is written about on this date in 3000 BC. Wow, okay. For a long time, the origin of the name of Africa has been the subject of debate, as many historians have not been able to come to an agreement on how the continent got its name. The descriptive word Africa, for many, it is 1.2 billion people, equates to a home of unequaled linguistic, ethnic, and cultural variety. The place of an ancient civilization. It reminds some of poverty and corruption. Yet Africa provides a home for the first man on earth thousands of years ago. But where did the name Africa come from? One view is that the word came from the Romans, who named the land they found on the opposite side of the Mediterranean after a Berber tribe living in the Carthage area, now Tunisia. So we see here that they're saying that it came from of Roman origin, who named it after a Berber tribe. The Romans named it after a Berber tribe living in the Carthage area. Okay, some historians say that the word Africa might have stemmed from the Latin word Afri. I beg to differ. I say that it stems from the Hebrew word Afri, which is a Hebrew word. Some say that the word stems from the Latin word Afri, used to refer to the Berber tribe, the Alraga. The Romans called the region Afroterra, meaning the land of the Afri. The Latin suffix "ica" is used to denote a landmass as well. Historians suggest that the suffix "ica" could also be used to mean the land of Afri, as in Calatica, a region of modern France, which was named after the Celtae who lived there. For the 1st century ACE, Jewish historian Flavius Josephus wrote the continent was named after Afar. the grandson of Abraham and a companion of Hercules, whose descendants invaded Libya. The Hebrew name for the continent, Afrora, is said to be written as Afri in many Jewish records. Another theory that claims that Africa was named after a Yemenite chieftain, Africus, who invaded North Africa around the second millennium. Wow, now that's a new one. I'll read that again. Another theory that claims that Africa was named after a Yemenite chieftain, Africus, who invaded North Africa around the second millennium BCE. Legend says that upon founding a settlement in his newly conquered land, which he named Africa, there are historians who connect the name to the continent's climate. Some believe that the name came from the Greek word Africae, which translates as the land of the free from cold and horror. For others, it is a variation of the Roman word aprika, meaning sunny, or the Phoenician word afar, meaning dust. I like that one. Further, it is assumed that the name was introduced by traders from modern-day India. In Sanskrit and Hindi, the word apara, or Africa, translates in geological terms as a place that comes after or to the west. In recent times, some historians have debunked claims that the Greek, Roman, Hindus, or Arabs created the name Africa. That's key. Historians have debunked these claims now. They argue that the Roman and Greek started using the name right after the first contact with African people, following the Roman. According to historian Ivan van Sertima, the term Afru-Ika means birthplace or motherland. Essentially, Afru-Ika means to turn towards an opening of the Ka, womb, or birthplace. Other theories have equated Africa to the fourth dynasty pharaoh Khafre. You see that Afri in there before the Ka, the KH Afri, who ruled from c. 258 to 2 2 2 2 excuse me 2558 to 2532. My brain ain't working now. BC. The belief is that modern Egyptologists have merged the order of the ancient Egyptian writing style of Khafre to mean Africa or Africa. Wow. The belief is that modern Egyptologists have merged the order of the ancient Egyptian writing style of Khafre to mean Africa or Africa. I want to point your attention at this word right here. It's called Afuri. Okay? Afuri. And in Hebrew, it means gritty. And in Yiddish, to prove that Hebrew and Yiddish are two different languages, and in Yiddish, the word means the same.
Afuri. Gritty.
It means gritty in Hebrew, and in Yiddish, it is said to mean the same thing. Now, as we goes down here, Okay, we can see Afruri means gritty. We can see that's the last word. You got that's Gargiri, the first word, and you got Kuli, the second word, and then you got Afruri right here where it says gritty. Then you have that, which is the third word, Afruri. You see it, the third word, and then we see for dusty. Okay, we see Afruri there as well, which is the second word here for dusty, and also Afri. Look at the last word, earthy. Afri, Afruri, Afri, mean earthy. Okay, now we got gritty. Okay, dusty. Grit, understand gritty meaning like sandy, dealing with sand. We're dealing with dust. We're dealing with the earth here, earthy. A real earthy place, a earthy. This is where the name come from. You see that Afri and Afruri down there where it says earthy. Okay, let's say who do it in Hebrew? How to say earthy in Hebrew? Afri. See that there? There you go. Afri. Excuse me. Afri. That is the root word of Africa. Afri. It means earthy. Okay? So we have Afri, earthy, dusty, gritty, sandy. You see the correlation there? And how Afri, the land was named after him? The gritty, the sandy, the dusty, the earthy part of the world was designated to Afri, and it became Africa. Afruri, Afruri, Afri. So we got the English to Hebrew, and it's telling us the same thing there. It's that of Arzi, Gashmi, Azri, Gashmi. I'm not fixing to read all of that. But anyway, because I would have to translate it, and then I'd have to prove my translation through parsing, and I really don't feel like going through all of that. But anyway, now we look up this word gritty here. We see containing or covered with grit. Okay, and we see grit there, sandy, dealing with sand. Okay, and we're looking at grainy or granular. And then we have another meaning here, meaning showing courage and resolve. A gritty people showing courage and resolve. Remember the text we was reading earlier saying that they were showing courage and they were a courageous people showing courage and that they were a sagacious people, gritty, gritty, Afri, Afruri, gritty, showing courage, a sagacious people, gritty, dusty, earthy, sandy. We're looking at a map of the Sahara Desert where it's all dusty. You see, And this dustiness goes all the way over. You see, all of this gray area is desert area. It goes all up into Spain, and you can see that almost all of Algeria is dusty, sandy, earthy area. You see, and this is how Africa got its name. You see, notice that Phoenician Afri and Hebrew Afri, they have the same story. We're talking about the Banu Ephraim, the sons of Afrin. Okay, the the Banu Ephraim were a Zenata Berber tribe, predominant in early history, in the history of pre-Islam and early Islamic North Africa. In the 8th century, they established the kingdom in the central Maghreb with Tlemcen as its capital. Prior to the 8th century, the Banu Afrin resisted or revolted against foreign occupiers, which were the Romans, the Vandals, and the Byzantines. That's the 8th century. And their territories in Africa. In the 7th century, they sided with Kahina in her assistance against the Muslim Umayyad invaders. Now, that's important because these were the Umayyad, these were the fairer skinned Muslims that came in who he invaded. They were not the darker skinned in the 7th century. Uh, in the 8th century, they mobilized around around the Sufri dogma, and revolting against the Arab Umayyads and the Abbasids. So they were fighting against both black and white Arabs. The Abbasids were Africans. And in the 10th century, they founded the dynasty opposed to the Fatimids and the Zarids. The Fatimids and Zarids were black, and the Umayyads were Turkish, and the Hamidids, I'm not familiar with them, and the Maghrura. The Banu Afrin were defeated by the Almoravids and the invading Arabs and the Banu Halal and the Sanu Salim the Banu Salim. At the end of the 11th century, the Afrinid dynasty was recognized as the only dynasty that defeated the indigenous people of the Maghreb by the Romans, referred to as the Africani. That's a new name, the Africani. In the 11th century, Iberia, the Afrinids, that's another word, founded a Tiafara of Ronda in 1039 at Ronda in Al-Andalus and governed from Cordoba for several centuries. The name of the Berber dynasty, Ifrin, is the plural form of the Berber language word Ifri or Afri, which means cave or tunnel. Other possibilities that their name is derived from one of the major gods of the pagan Berbers, Afru and Afrahu, or that the name is derived from the region Yifrin in present-day northwest Libya, where they may have originated. The name of the Afrin tribes has many alternative spellings such as Afrorasis or Afar in Latin, and Afrinidi, and Aforin, and Frin, and Wafrin, and Yifrin, and Yafrin, or Yafrin, or Yafran, but all of the names simply means the sons of Ifri. The prefix Banu was added by the Muslim writers and is equal to the Berber prefix Ayat, which means the sons of or those of the Berbers, or son of the Berbers, or the son of the Afrins, or those of the Afrins. And they got a history was going all the way back to the 7th century, the Afrinids. But y'all can check out the rest of this article on your own. I want to get to something else real quick. Just go through here about the Sanaja Berbers, you know. Yep, this is some good history. They were Berbers. You can scroll down and see about the Banu Afrins in Spain and their influence. Okay. And even talk about the religion before Islam amongst the Afrin was animism. You notice that they talk about how Africa was animist and how in African religions they're animist. Okay. So amongst the Afrin was animism. Animism was the principle of spiritual philosophy. Africa was also the name of a Berber deity, Afri, and their name may have an origin in their beliefs. Okay, the Afru rites symbolized in caves were held to gain favor or protection from merchants and traders. The myths of this protection is befittingly depicted on Roman coins. Afri was the Afru, was regarded as sun goddess, cave goddess, and protector of homes. Afru or Afrin was regarded as a Berber version of Vesta. Dahir, usually referred to as the Kahina, was the Jejrara, Berber queen, prophetess, and leader of the non-Muslim response to the advancing Arab armies. Some historians claim Dahir was Christian or a follower of a Judaic faith. Though few of the Afrin were Christian, even though more than half of a millennium of Christianity amongst the urban population and the more sedentary tribes, Ibn Khaldun simply states that the Afrin were Berbers and says nothing of their religion before the advent of Islam. But during Islam, the Banu Afrin were opposed to the Sunnis of the Arab army. They eventually converted, but joined the Kharijite movement within Islam. Ibn Khaldun claimed that the Zenata people say that they are Muslims, but they still oppose the Arab army. That's the Zenatas. They oppose the Arabs. After 711, the Berbers were systematically converted to Islam, and many became devout members of the faith. You're checking out those coins in Rome began to dominate the area, lightening up the area. And we see that a bunch of those people of light skin, it's hard to check the genetic pool of that area because of years of mixing. You had Germans in there, you had Vandals in there, you had Romans in there, you know what I'm saying? So you had a lot of that mixture of people that were dealing with these Romans. But this is the origin of the name Africa.